This is the First and 15 podcast, the only podcast that's trying to get you paid. I'm the original Chris, and I'm here with two-time FFPC champion AB. I'm also here with Dio the Machine, our dynasty guru. You know what, guys? I want to jump right into this podcast this week, and I want to talk about Big Ben. He has 3 receivers that are going really high in these drafts, and how many times can we expect a 39-year-old quarterback to feed 3 receivers in a single offense, especially when they just drafted Najee Harris?
I mean, are we sure it's just 3? It may be 4 or 5.
Maybe 5.
Maybe 5. Maybe 5.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I mean, we all know the receivers he has right now. He has Juju, he has Deontay, and he has Chase. You know, and last year they actually all were ranked in the top 25 as far as fantasy points. So he actually did produce 3 top wide receivers to some extent. The question we have now is he going to be able to do it again? Like you mentioned, he brought in a running back now, which last year they didn't really have a running back. They really couldn't run the ball very well, Correct. Whether it's due to not a talented enough back in the backfield or, the offensive line just being horrible, kind of like they still are now. But regardless, they definitely have to pass a lot more than what they probably wanted to do. So now, he's older, like you said. He's knocking on the 40-year-old door.
Yeah.
He's dealt with injuries. I think he missed all of, 2019 or 2018 or most of it.
Mm-hmm.
2019. We're already hearing reports now that he had to leave practice for some undisclosed injury we don't even know about.
I didn't hear that, but okay.
Yeah, I think that was a couple of days ago. Bringing in a running back, I would assume Tomlin would want to run the ball a fair amount more. And with that, are they going to actually run the ball or are they going to dump it off to him a little bit, which actually will benefit Ben, but at the same time, it's not really going to help the receivers. So I don't know. I mean, personally, and you did kind of allude to the fact that they have other receivers. They have James Washington. They have Ray McLeod, I believe his name is. Not to mention their tight ends, Ebron and the rookie. So is he going to be able to allow those 3 receivers to be top 25 receivers again this year? I would kind of side on the side of no,
I think I'm in agreement with you, although I think at their current ADPs, I'm willing to draft the majority of them. Juju, I'm still very iffy on.
Now, where are their ADPs right now? I believe Deontay's in the 5th.
Deontay's typically in the 5th.
Juju, I think, is in the 7th, but I think Chase is in the 6th. So they're literally one round after each other.
Correct. And some people may argue that Claypool may have the most upside. I'm a sucker for targets, so Deontay's been my guy.
Yeah, you've loved Deontay for a while.
Yeah,
actually.
Deontay was my guy last year,
Yeah.
And I'm looking for this year's Deontay. We think we found him. But getting back to the Big Ben question, actually, when I was saying I think they have 5 receiving options, I was referring to Deontay, Claypool, Juju, for me in that particular order. But then I was also referring to Ebron.
Okay. Who people just totally forget and disrespect right now.
Disrespected.
Like he's not even around.
Disrespected.
Like he's not even on the Steelers or something like
He's literally one of my highest owned players because he's just free.
Right.
Okay?
He was the Kyle Pitts before the current Kyle Pitts.
It's funny that people, everyone always touts the idea that, rookie tight ends do not come into the league and produce. Pittsburgh drafts a tight end, and now we're scared of Eric Ebron. I don't get it. But either way, he's free. So if you're looking for a tight end at the end of drafts, I just let people take such and such player and then, okay, let me grab Ebron.
Yeah, and we'll talk about tight ends a little later. But yeah.
So Ebron, and then the 5th guy for me was actually Najee Harris.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we finally have a traditional 3-down back. This is a complex situation, and there's a wide range of outcomes. I actually am favoring, I think, the positive outcomes, again, taking into account their ADP. So I think it may be a situation of addition by subtraction. And by that, I mean a more balanced offense, less pass volume, especially these short, quick passes, as well as, this change in the offensive, scheme with the new OC coming in. Okay. I think the quality of targets will actually be better for the wide receivers.
Okay.
I think them having a more balanced offense with not someone like Najee Harris that defenses really have to pay attention to, I think will open things up for the wide receivers.
Okay. But the question was, do you think they're all going to be fantasy valuable?
Absolutely.
All three of them.
Absolutely. It depends. The format is always dependent on the format. You always have to go back to what type of league you're drafting in.
Let's keep it on FFPC.
So if we're talking
High
FFPC, where you're starting, you have to start 2 wide receivers and you can start 2 flexes.
Yeah. So it's 1 point PPR.
1 point PPR.
Yeah.
I think they all have value, especially someone like Juju, who may have a low A dot. You know, his average depth of target may be very low, so he may not get the yardage. But historically, he's been shown to have some yak in certain years.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's necessarily lost that athleticism, but I think opening up the offense, being a little bit more creative, we may see, again, more high-value targets, whether it's being more creative in the passing game or driving the ball a little bit more, downfield, or receivers seeing more man in the box and more one-on-one activity on the outsides or over the middle of the field because people are now worried about Najee Harris.
See, but here's the thing. The last time we saw Big Ben throw this many passes, he had the 2019 elbow surgery and missed the entire season. Do we expect Big Ben to play another season with 40-plus passes with this receiving core? To me, it seems like they drafted Najee Harris because they wanted to move towards a more balanced offense.
I agree.
And so can we really expect those receivers to get the same targets that they got last year?
They may not get the same targets, but they may get higher quality targets.
I see what
Remember,
you're saying.
their targets from last year, we would watch. I mean, Juju was just getting. He saw a fair amount of targets.
He disappointed some people, but he actually produced a fair amount.
But it was his yardage that was disappointing from a yardage standpoint.
Yeah,
so I think again, if defenses have more to think about, if the offensive play calling becomes more creative, then we again may see a situation where those targets are higher value, higher A dot, more yak, allowing these players to operate in space as opposed to so close to the line of scrimmage where they're immediately getting targeted as soon as they catch the ball or tackled when they get.
Who was their new OC? I don't recall.
So
do we know?
Yes. So their new OC is Matt Canada.
Was he with them before, or where did he come from?
I believe they had Matt Canada last year. Matt Canada is on the record with saying that he wants to open up that offense. But to me, as you guys stated on last episode, they're saying one thing but doing another.
What they're doing,
I don't necessarily know that they're doing another. I think they're filling a hole. I mean, number one, Fickner himself, I don't know who was calling the plays last year, to be quite honest. I don't know if it was Big Ben because of his elbow, that he didn't really want to drive the ball down the field, or they just didn't have a very experienced play caller. It was one of those teams that we all saw it early in the season. They were not as good as their record had indicated. Right. And so a lot of their flaws were just, hidden.
Right.
And then later in the season, they got a bit more exposed. So for me, I tend to be optimistic in these scenarios because, as you always allude to, things can always go one way or the other. Right. They change OCs. They may get worse.
Wide range of outcomes.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think the team, understanding their deficiencies last year, understanding that they need to be more balanced, I always look at – that's one reason why I'm not as high on a Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Not that I don't think that they're going to be elite or very good, but for me, I think that offense may struggle this year because they were so one-dimensional last year. We're looking from a strictly NFL perspective. That was one big reason why I didn't have them advancing to the Super Bowl, is because you can't be a one-dimensional team in advance. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs. They had to learn how to run on their Super Bowl run to be able to advance.
Right.
It was their run game that got them over the hill. So I think Pittsburgh understands that. They understand that they cannot be one-dimensional. When you're one-dimensional, one year it may work. Baltimore Ravens, for instance.
Yeah.
But then when teams get tape on that and they understand it, and it didn't take teams that long to get tape on Pittsburgh, they figured it out towards the end of the year.
Right.
Their offense stalled. So they have to understand that they got to be more balanced.
The only thing I'll add to this conversation, because we are again referring to the Steelers receivers, is last year specifically, like somebody like Chase Claypool, he was getting a lot of touchdowns. I mean, his efficiency was pretty high. Yardage wise, I don't think he had a lot of yardage. I just remember him scoring a lot of touchdowns. Even like with reverses, he was getting the ball running it. And I think there was a game he scored like 3 or 4 touchdowns in one game.
Yeah.
So he was having these crazy touchdown games, which again, he was probably mid-20s as far as fantasy wide receiver points ranking.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to be able to do that again. Because, again, they didn't have that running game last year.
Yeah.
So without the running game last year, they had to kind of find these creative ways to pass the ball in short yardage and still score. Now that you have the number one running back in the draft, you would think they would say, okay, let's not worry about throwing these little screens. I mean, they might still do it because it was effective.
They were actually sweeps, reverses, handoffs.
I mean, there was hitch routes.
They manufactured him touches. They found creative ways to get him the ball. But the other thing that you could say is that was his rookie year.
Yeah. So he's going to get better.
As much as I love Deontay last year, I'm lukewarm this year. It's more of a situation where...
Not our boy Deontay.
Yeah. I mean, he's going in the 5th round, so it's more of a situation where ideally, there's other wide receivers that may fall. Earlier in the year, it was Robert Woods, and I would much rather have a Robert Woods than a Deontay Johnson.
Yeah.
But you're right. You don't know how Chase Claypool is going to, or how they're going to incorporate him in this new offense.
Right.
Moving into year 2. So
and we can move on right after this. But I did hear when I think I put it in our group chat. Somebody was talking up Ray McLeod, who's the 5th wide receiver.
Yeah.
They still got James Washington, and it's just random. Like, how are they even going to get the ball to all these other receivers? So we'll see what happens, but
I don't know. I still think that it's a lot to ask a 39-year-old quarterback who has the type of injuries. Knocking on 40.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's talking to Tom Brady. Okay, so this is the one thing.
Compare Big Ben to Tom
this is the one thing with the elbow injury. I personally would expect him, and I have not talked to anyone in the medical community, but I wouldn't expect him to perform worse than he did last year. I think another year removed from that elbow surgery, in my mind, I don't see that he can get any worse. I think he can only get better. I would anticipate that he should be able to push the ball further down the field a year removed.
Maybe. Now, maybe. The thing that just gives me a little bit of hesitancy is he keeps, as of late, he keeps talking about potential retirement. Which means he's kind of
been talking about retirement for like the last 10 years.
Because I think his body is telling him that, hey,
I think that's what
I need to retire.
Like he's starting to feel like
Ben the drama queen.
Really
let's be honest.
He is.
Ben the drama
he is.
queen.
But I just can't shake it. Like he almost feels like my body is saying I can't go too much longer. But we'll see.
I said, God, give me a warning. Please take me for the morning so I leave more disappointments than I ever will appointments. Give a fuck about your feelings.